Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Joseph Garza. I am a Botany Scientifics endocannabinoid specialist, and tonight on our endocannabinoid briefing, we are going to be going over COA analysis. My co-host is with me also, Mr. Jeff Howell, and he is a health advocacy board member of our legal counsel. And so that going, appreciate everybody who has joined on tonight. We got another joiner on, so appreciate you. We're going to go ahead and get started here. Tonight's topic is on the certificate of analysis and the importance of this document and what it is. Right now, the certificate of analysis in the industry is going to be a it's the single most important document in the hemp industry currently. It's important. It's laboratory issues records that tell a retailer and clinician and the consumer what is actually inside the product, and not what the label claims, none of the marketing, what the brand premise is about, and it's all going back into the accredited system as to what is actually in this product. So that is what the certificate of analysis is doing. The 3 points that anchor what a certificate analysis is it's not a marketing document. It's a accredited third-party laboratory report that confirms or contradicts what the product label claims. And then everything, hemp is federally legal only with a narrow THC threshold of 0.03, and that's on a dry weight on the 2018 Farm Bill. Right now, largely unregulated, and at the finished product level, the COA testing is often the only real safeguard between a consumer and an untested product. So the other part of the brand's consistency and full panel COAs. Currently, most COAs up until January 31st were just cannabinoids. A lot of companies such as Botany Scientifics, we actually did full panels. Those full panels now, as of July 31st, are now being required by the state of Texas. So now we've been doing this since the get-go, doing a full panel testing and trying to lead the industry and stewarding it properly by showing everybody what's in these products. So prior to the July 31st, only cannabinoids were on to be presented to the consumer. Now everything has to be, from the pesticides, microbiomes, mold, all that testing has to be in the COAs. So the next part, what is a certificate of analysis? I'm going to hand that over to Mr. Jeff Howell. He can go over a little bit of what a certificate of analysis is. Mr. Jeff, you want to take it
Yeah,
over?
thank you, Joseph. Yeah, certificate of analysis is really just a formal report, but most importantly, it's issued by an independent testing laboratory. So what it does is it documents the chemical and microbiological analysis that's performed on specific products in a batch or in an individual sample. So in this space, in the hemp and cannabinoid space, the COAs are typically issued by an ISO IEC 17025, if you want to get very detailed, accredited laboratory. And what that is it's an international standard that confirms that the lab's testing methods and their equipment are calibrated properly, and that the quality management of the testing itself meets the recognized technical standard benchmarks that are required to be able to do these kinds of tests and to issue the certificate of analysis. So Botany did the test through AccuScience Laboratories in Florida. They have accreditation in the state of Florida for products including the Botany Scientifics tinctures, the gummies, the topical salve, and the full spectrum hemp oil capsules. So what each of these reports identifies is the specific product, the batch, the lot number, the date the sample was collected, how it was received and reported. So all of that is like a chain of title. It's a chain of custody of the materials that are being tested. So it's very important that that be a really trustworthy system and process so that we can make sure that we're testing the right thing and that we get the results for the right products. Another important thing is the accredited lab and its licensed accreditation numbers prove that it's actually accredited, and those are going to be on each COA so that we can refer back to them anytime that we want to verify. And we'll get into that a little bit later into this presentation of why that's so important for health practitioners and others, just general consumers that want to be able to verify this information. It also has a summary panel that shows which tests were run, whether each test returned a pass, a fail, or a not tested status. It also has included a detailed analysis and data of the instrument that was used, the method that was used, the preparation, the details of the preparation before the test and during the test, and every aspect of how the test was measured and how each result was accounted for. So what this does is it's really a deep level of detail that separates genuine COAs from just marketing hype or marketing language that a lot of companies are out there promoting, which are not based on this level of testing or verification from an accredited laboratory like we're doing here. So it can be independently verified after the fact, after the lab issues the COA. In other words, you can go back and verify it. You can have other tests done to verify that. So that's really the data that it provides us so that we can know exactly what we're getting and exactly what is included in what we're getting. So Joseph, you want to go over what a COA actually tests for and how that plays into this equation?
Absolutely. I really, going back to the point of, what the certificate of analysis is, I think this is one of the most important pieces as the consumer, whether it's practitioner, doctor, anybody who is going to consume these products. This is, if there's any questions about the product, this is where you go. This is where you want to get onto the brand's website. You want to look up their COAs. You want to start analyzing that as to what is in there. The more information it has, the better the product is. The less information it has, more questions there's going to remain as to what's in that product. So what actually,
like you said, Joseph, it's the only buffer between the product manufacturer and the consumer, the
yes,
health practitioner. That's very important.
it's extremely important, especially with everything that's going on right now through the medias. You could cut through all that by just looking at a COA, and it'll tell you exactly what is in that product. So again, what is the COA actually testing for? The first thing that we obviously look for is the cannabinoid profile. That is number one, that everybody, what type of cannabinoids are in that product, or if the product is saying, hey, it has 10 milligrams of XYZ cannabinoid, is that actually in the product? What the label is claiming, the COA will actually show, yes, that it does have 25 milligrams, 10 milligrams of whatever the compound is. So again, they test for the cannabinoids. We go a little further. We do terpene testing, flavonoid testing. We also do pesticide testings, heavy metal testings. Residual solvents is a huge one. Microbial testing, mycotoxins, water activity inside the product for moisture content, foreign materials, and then homogeny as well. So that's quite a few things that these COAs actually go over. I'm actually going to pull up right now and share my screen and pull up actually one of our COAs.
It's important to note that not every panel is run on every batch because the testing scope is driven by the type of product it is, the compliance requirements, and sometimes even the request of the whatever company is requesting the COA. So
Right.
if it says not tested, that doesn't mean that we just left it off because we didn't want to test it. It has to do with the actual verification.
Right, and that would have to be from the manufacturer or the brand requesting the specific types of testing. Now, as of July 31st, they're now required to have a full panel testing which is going to have a lot more information. You can still leave off where Botany goes over to basically the extra mile, to show everyone what's in these products. Not everybody is still going to do that, even with the current laws as they are. But hopefully, we're stewarding this in the right way where it could be a standard to look for in everything we're doing. And you're correct as far as batches. So when you're looking at a product, it should have a batch number that should correlate to the COA that you're looking at. And that ensures that that product that you're looking at was the product tested. It's not an old test. Nothing over, there should be nothing over 2 years. I think they try to break it off at about 18 months, but nothing over 2 years because that's where the shelf life cuts off. So if you got something that's over 2 years old, I would start asking, that may be a red flag, a question mark, right there. But you can, as looking on the certificate of analysis that is shared on my screen right now, you can see that it's Botany Scientifics. You could also see the accreditation on the lab sample, the retail batch, the type of product that it was, the date that it was tested, and then everything below it, everything that it was tested for: terpenes, heavy metals, foreign materials, microbiology, myotoxins, residual solvents, pesticides, the moisture content, and water activity. So you see moisture content on here was not tested. Sometimes they want to test moisture content, sometimes they don't. On the moisture content, it measures the water availability to support microbiome and mold growth. That's the main reason why we test for that. Now, on here, like you said, we got a cannabinoids terpene profile, which you don't see a lot of people doing a terpene profile, even on their full panels. We go that extra step. The terpenes are actually important. They do have a medicinal benefit to them as well. So those, then we go down and we have the pesticide testing. You can see that it's very extensive. What you want to see, everything in green, all passed, no red. So red is going to indicate that something did not pass, something that was over the limit of quantitation that they're testing at, where their machinery is titrated. So anything, that is above a certain measurement is going to fail. So you see here on the pesticides, all pass on our tincture. I'm going to go back real quick. Sorry, it keeps doing that. But one thing I do want to test or want to take a look at and blow up here is when you look at the profiles, right here, this is a 3,000 milligram tincture. You want to go in here and you want to see, so you got CBD, you got 3,240 milligrams per unit. So that's the entire, so we actually overshot it. So 3,000 is what's on the label. We went over. That's okay. You don't want to go too far under. But full spectrum on the tincture, you also see that there's multiple molecules on here. You got CBC, you got CBDV, you got CBG, and then you got a little bit of THC delta 9, which helps with the lock and key system on our endocannabinoid system. And then those terpenes are actually from our peppermints and also it's kind of like a eucalyptus mint, and they actually do have some benefits, like respiratory benefits on those, which is really cool as I was looking at that. Then as we go down, like I said, we got those pesticides all pass. Then we come down, we go into the microbiomes, myotoxins, heavy metals, all green, all passed. Did say no water activity, but there was one test on water activity. Foreign materials also pass. And then down to residual solvents. This was also another section that I found as I looked at different certificate of analysis. We reached out to some manufacturers to ask the questions why sometimes residual solvents show up on a solvent, what should be a solventless product. So the reason why that is during the testing process, they're actually it's a heat process. So as they cook the product, decarbonization happens and you wind up pulling out any type of it's so minuscule, but sometimes that will show up on a residual solvent on these tests. So at a low quantitation, it's totally fine. You're going to get a pass. But that's something that I am seeing on some of the companies out there on those solvents, and it doesn't necessarily mean that it's a bad product. So just wanted to kind of throw that out there, but that pretty much goes over our COA, our certificate of analysis on our tincture. You can find all of our certificate of analysis on every single product on botanyscientifics.com if you have any other questions of taking a look at those. But that's basically a real world snapshot of a true certificate of analysis from Botany Scientifics. They're not all going to look this way. There's different of laboratories out there. They sometimes present them a little bit different, but at the end of the day, almost all the information will be very similar. Now, outside of that, the reason why these are so important, Jeff, I think this is more on your section. You know,
Yeah.
why are the COAs so important?
Well, it's great to see so much depth in the certificate of analysis, and it is so important because the farm bill removed hemp and sativa containing no more than 0.3 percent delta 9. So that is the first test. That's kind of like the industry standard. It's the legal foundation for the entire hemp product industry, but it only governs delta 9. It doesn't have any other guarantee of what the finished tincture or gummy or salve, what else it has in it, if it's free of pesticides or heavy metals or solvents or any of the other things that you just went over. There's no clear FDA established comprehensive finalized product review, if you will, or testing standard for hemp derived cannabinoid products. So state requirements vary widely. So having a third party COA with this kind of depth is really the only quality control that we have, again, as that acting as that buffer between the manufacturer and the end user. Another reason is hemp is a bioaccumulator. It draws a lot of, we know that it's amazing plant, right? It draws heavy metals, pesticides, and other contaminants from the soil, and it accumulates those within the plant itself. And so they get concentrated. And during the extraction into oils and tinctures, we're going to be able to find out if the plant was grown in contaminated soil, for example, or if it's treated with ag chemicals or something that's not approved in hemp cultivation. That'll come out in the COA tests. And they might be this kind of contamination, in other words, might be undetectable otherwise. You can't taste it, you can't smell it, you can't see it. So the only way to find out if it's in there is to really do an extensive test like we've done here. Another reason is label accuracy. There's no guarantee on label accuracy. Market analysis repeatedly finds hemp and CBD products where actual cannabinoid content diverges meaningfully from the claims of the label. And sometimes it contains far less, sometimes it contains far more, right? So the COA potency panel is the mechanism that kind of catches this discrepancy, and that will be true before it's released onto the shelf for the buyer. So that's why it's so important, because we need to know exactly what's in there, exactly what we're getting in the amounts that we're getting it. Contamination, health consequences of microbial contamination are real. We know E. coli, salmonella, other toxins are out there, and they could enter the stream of the manufacturing process somehow, even though we're doing our best or another manufacturer is doing their best. So the COA is going to prove that those things are not, that they don't exist within this product. And then clinical and provider trust is kind of what we were getting at with the buffer. It provides practitioners the proof and the trust that they need to be able to recommend a product, right? to a patient, in other words. So they're not going to be able to do that in integrity if they don't have something to fall back on, like a COA, a lab test that they can actually prove what's in there, because they just can't take that kind of risk. So it's really beneficial for clinicians and other practitioners, as well as the end consumer. And then finally, the brand differentiation. Consumers, they don't know what they're buying. This is a new category, relatively. Consumers are learning, and manufacturers are learning how to educate them. That's why we're doing this right now, so we can educate people on what this all means.
Exactly.
There's no other way to really distinguish rigorously tested product from one that is just marketing hype,
Right.
unless you have some lab test to fall back on. So very, very important to give retailers and distributors and others the documented basis for the products that they're carrying in their stores and recommending to the public. So that's why it's so important here.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think like you hit the nail on the head. It's super important. I think it's a differentiator of all products out there on the markets. I mean, think about how many products are out on the market that don't even have this type of testing that we do consume. So what I would tell our viewers is the hemp industry is going over and beyond leaps and bounds in providing a safe, consumable product out there. So when it comes to the COAs, they're not an afterthought. They're a third party, that's doing the testing for that product. So you can trust those. And that is where I would start. Any product that I'm looking at, this is where I would look into the COAs of that product. If they don't list the COA, you don't buy the product. I mean, it's that simple.
Right.
If they don't have a full panel COA currently right now, that's another red flag. So these are very, very important topic on the COA when it comes to when you're looking to purchase any type of hemp product. That these products are actually, tested where they're safe to consume. And again, even past the point of a lot of our consumable just products, just you can domain produce, canned goods, anything. Try to find a certificate of analysis on those types of
Yeah. They
things.
list a lot of ingredients, but
Right, but they don't get into an actual lab test. Well, that pretty much concludes today's certificate of analysis. So Jeff, have you got anything else to add?
I mean, I've learned a lot just by going over the certificate of analysis with you, and the importance of it, and I guess the trust factor for me is really
Absolutely.
what hits home. Is that being
That's
able
what
to
we're
trust the
building.
products that we're consuming is it's more and more important in my life. Like Joseph said, with any of the products that I'm consuming, I'm getting off the food shelf, and this is no different. I'd like to know this level of information about everything I'm consuming. But
Awesome. All right. Well, that concludes today's endocannabinoid briefing. And until next week.